What would you do if you accidentally took someone else's cart from the supermarket and only found out when you got home? She just walked out of the supermarket with the wrong cart. These things happen. Nobody yelled. Nobody ran after her. The cameras didn't catch anything worth noting. Ordinary evening, ordinary groceries, ordinary receipt. She only understood the mistake at home. By then, it had already cost more than she could explain. First, a phone call, then a polite man at the door, then another one who already knew everything. And at some point it became unclear which was worse, the wrong cart or what you did after you realized it wasn't yours. On a Friday evening, the checkout lanes at Hy-Vee had the look of a place slightly overwhelmed by other people's decisions. The lines moved unevenly, carts squeaked, bags rustled too loud, and the card terminals beeped now and then like something had offended them. Karen Morris stood in the third lane from the left, holding her grocery list even though she'd already gotten everything. The list was folded in half, then half again, like a receipt that hadn't been rung up yet. The man in front of her had 6 packs of mineral water and 1 banana. The banana sat alone on the belt, like a person who'd ended up in the wrong group. The man kept his hands in his pockets and rocked heel to toe. Behind Karen stood a woman with a kid. The kid was reaching for candy and not quite making it. The woman kept saying, "Not today. Okay? The way you say something you've already said too many times." Karen checked her watch, 6:40. She liked knowing the exact time. It helped with the nerves, though in practice she went on being nervous anyway, just in a more organized fashion. The belt moved. The cashier, a pale girl with a name tag that said Megan, scanned items at a steady pace, not looking at anyone. She said hi to each customer without raising her eyes, said thank you the same way. It was courtesy that ran on its own. "Do you have a rewards card?" Megan asked the banana man. "Yep," he said, hands still in his pockets. "Okay," said Megan. The pause ran a second longer than was comfortable. "Just a sec," the man said, and began slowly pulling out his wallet, like something fragile was in there. Karen shifted her weight. Her cart was tidy: milk, eggs, chicken, bread, a bag of apples, 2 yogurts, dish soap, everything placed level, nothing extra. She checked the list again, though she knew every box was already checked. Somewhere to the right, someone dropped a bottle, a dull thud, then a short, "Oh," then immediately, "No, I got it." Karen turned her head but saw nothing, just a Hy-Vee employee in a green vest already walking over with a rag. The belt moved again. "Need bags?" Megan asked. "Yeah," said the man. "Paper or plastic? Which is faster?" Megan looked up for the first time. "Same, either way." "Plastic then," said the man. "Sure." Karen let out a breath. She hadn't noticed she'd been holding it. When her turn came, things moved quicker. She placed items on the belt in the order that made sense for packing. Megan scanned without looking. The terminal beeped. "Do you have a rewards card?" "Yes." Karen held it out. "Thank you." Karen slid the card into the reader. It thought for a beat longer than usual. Processing appeared on the screen. She stared at the word like something depended on it. "Busy today," said Megan, eyes down. "Yeah," said Karen. "Friday." The terminal beeped again. "Approved." "Your receipt," said Megan. "Thanks." Karen took the receipt and folded it in half without thinking. She didn't look at the total. She rarely did right away. Home was calmer. The greeter at the exit nodded. She nodded back. That part mattered, the nod. The parking lot was colder than she'd expected. Snow sat in gray lumps between the cars. It crunched underfoot like it was complaining. Karen opened the trunk and started moving bags from the cart. But she put it down to the water, except she hadn't bought any. She paused a moment, then kept going. Her list was short, but there seemed to be more bags. She figured maybe she'd grabbed an extra sauce. That happened. The cart next to her car looked the same as every other cart. Metal, a little road grime on the wheels, one wheel that squeaked. She didn't notice the sticker on the handle had a different number. "Excuse me," someone said behind her. Karen turned. The woman with the kid from the checkout line was standing 2 steps away, wrestling her cart out of the row. "Did I bump you?" the woman asked. "No, I'm fine," Karen said, and moved her cart slightly to the side. "Thanks." "Sure." The kid looked at Karen like she might be able to explain something. Karen closed the trunk, pushed the cart back toward the corral. The wheel squeaked louder than it had inside. She paused a moment to lock it properly into the row. That part mattered too. When she got in the car, a thin crust of ice was already forming on the windshield. She turned on the defroster, waited for the fan to settle into a steady hum. The radio murmured something about road conditions. The house was warm. Too warm, the heat was running high again. Karen took off her coat and draped it over the back of a chair, the way she always did, even though the hook by the door was free. She carried the bags to the kitchen and started unpacking. It went fine at first: milk fridge, eggs, top shelf, chicken into a container, apples into the bowl. She moved fast and exact. The way you move through something you've done 1,000 times. Then she pulled out a jar of organic pasta sauce. She hadn't bought organic pasta sauce. Karen stopped. She looked at the jar, then at the bag, then at the counter. 2 more jars just like it. Yogurt she didn't recognize the brand of. A box marked gluten-free that she'd never touched in her life. She frowned, but she wasn't scared. It still looked like the kind of mistake you could explain. Well, she said quietly, to nobody. She started laying everything out on the counter. Item by item, some things were hers, some weren't. The weren't column was bigger than felt right, uncomfortable, but not yet alarming. Karen fished the receipt from her pocket and unfolded it. She read the first line, then the second, then the total, 312.47. She blinked, looked again. No, she said. She ran her finger down the list. Items she hadn't taken. A lot of them. She flipped the receipt over like the back might have an explanation. At the very bottom, a pharmacy logo, a prescription number, a name. Shane Maloney. Karen felt something go cold in her stomach, not sudden. More like someone had cracked a window and the cold just walked in on its own. She looked at the counter. Among the groceries sat a white paper bag she hadn't noticed before. Folded neat, the way something gets folded when it's placed last. Karen picked it up. It was light. She looked at the kitchen doorway, like someone might be standing there watching. Nobody was. The refrigerator hummed. The clock on the wall ticked a little louder than usual. Karen opened the top of the bag. Inside, prescription boxes. White, with pharmacy labels, the same name on each one. She closed the bag quickly, stood there, then opened it again. Slower this time. It's just a mistake, she said. It came out calm, almost convincing. That's when the lock turned. I'm home. Dan called from the front hall. Yeah, said Karen, and folded the bag. Closed the way you'd handle something that could break. Dan came into the kitchen, shrugged off his coat, set his keys on the counter. He looked at the groceries. Got a lot, he said. Sale, said Karen without looking up. Huh. He poured himself a glass of water, took a sip. How was your day, he asked. Fine. Yours? Same. Paperwork. The pause was short, but it was there. Karen folded the receipt in half, then half again. She didn't look at it. I always tell you everything, she said. She wasn't sure why she said it. Dan looked at her a beat longer than usual. Yeah, he said. He turned and opened the refrigerator. Karen put the receipt in the junk drawer, straight, even. The white paper bag she tucked under the sink. The cabinet door closed a little louder than it needed to, and at that moment it still looked like the kind of mistake you could explain. In the morning, the kitchen looked tidier than Karen felt. You could tell by the small things. The mug sat exactly inside yesterday's coffee ring. The knife lay parallel to the edge of the table, though she didn't remember lining it up. And the fridge hummed a little softer, like it was trying not to interfere. The light was pale, unsure, the kind of day where the sun exists, technically, but stays behind a thin layer of cloud and keeps out of it. Karen stood by the toaster, watching the bread brown slow. In her hand was a jar of organic ketchup, the one she hadn't bought. The label was smooth, no scratches. The lid opened with a quiet, almost polite click. She smelled it, sweet, a little sharp, like a promise of something better than usual. Well, she said softly, like someone might argue. The toaster clicked. She took the bread, set it on a plate, spread the ketchup, even layer, not too thick, sat down. The first bite was unexpectedly good. Good enough that for a second she forgot where the ketchup came from. That part was unpleasant, forgetting but convenient. She took another bite. In principle, she said, nothing wrong with it. The words hung there, didn't attach to anything. Under the sink, behind the cabinet door, sat the white paper bag. It made no sound, didn't move, didn't ask for attention. Still, it was there, like a draft you don't feel. Exactly, but know about. Karen finished the toast, wiped crumbs from the plate with her finger, then wiped the table with a napkin. She took a little longer than necessary, like the wiping might remove something besides crumbs. Her phone lay face down. She turned it over. One missed call, unknown number. She looked at the number like she might remember it. Didn't. Set the phone back down. Later, she said. She opened the cabinet under the sink. The bag was there. She took it out, set it on the table, unfolded it. The boxes lay straight, like on a pharmacy shelf, labels with a name. Clean, precise, Shane Maloney. Karen ran her finger along one of the labels without touching the adhesive. It's just medication, she said. It sounded like an explanation, more like instructions. She took out one box, read the name, meant nothing to her. Turned it over, looked at the fine print. Too many words to mean anything. She put it back, folded the bag the way it had been. The cabinet door closed, soft, almost apologetic. The phone vibrated again. Same number. Karen watched the screen a little longer than a decision required, then tapped accept. Hello? Pause. The line was quiet, not empty. a low background rustle, the kind you get where people speak in half voices. "Good morning," a woman said, even tone, no hurry. "Is this Karen Morris?" "Yes," said Karen. "Who is this?" "My name is Rita Hoyt. I'm a pharmacist with Walgreens. I'm calling about your order from yesterday." Karen sat down. "My order?" "Yes," said Rita. "You picked up groceries at Hy-Vee last night?" "Yes." "Good. Then this is probably just a small clarification." A short pause, neatly placed. "Your order includes a prescription filled through our pharmacy. I just want to confirm that you received it." Karen looked at the cabinet under the sink. "I didn't," she stopped. "I didn't order any medication." "I understand," said Rita. "Sometimes customers don't recall right away. That happens." "No, I'm sure," Karen said a little faster. "Just regular groceries." Pause. "All right," said Rita. "Let's verify. Do you have your receipt nearby?" Karen turned her head toward the drawer. "I think so. If you don't mind, check the bottom section. There should be a prescription number listed." Karen stood, opened the drawer. The receipt was there, folded neat, like it had been waiting. She unfolded it. Her eyes found the place right away. "I see the pharmacy line," she said. "Good," said Rita. "Then it's possible the medication was released with your groceries. That can happen with pickup orders." "No," said Karen. "I don't have any medication." The words came out even, almost easy. The pause on the line stretched a little longer. "I see," said Rita. "Our system shows it as dispensed." "Then it's probably a mistake," Karen said. "They mix up carts sometimes." "Yes, that happens," said Rita. "Though we try to be more careful with prescriptions." Her voice didn't change. "Flat, like a line on a chart nobody checks." "May I ask one more thing?" she added. "Yes. Are you sure there wasn't a white paper bag among your items?" Karen looked at the cabinet. "I'm sure the words came out faster than she wanted." "All right," said Rita. "I'll note that you did not receive the medication." "Please do. If you happen to find it, call us. It's important." "Of course." Pause. "Thank you for your time," said Rita. "Thank you," said Karen. She tapped end and set the phone face down right away, like it might keep talking on its own. The kitchen got quieter. Karen stood there holding the receipt. "It's just a mistake," she said. It sounded weaker now. She folded the receipt and put it back in the drawer, closed it, stood, then opened it again, took the receipt out, unfolded it. The total hadn't changed, neither had the name. She ran her finger over the pharmacy line like she could erase it. She couldn't. The phone vibrated again. Same number. Karen didn't answer. It stopped. A second later again. She turned the phone over, looked at the screen. Her finger hovered. "Later," she said, and tapped decline. Small decision, barely there, took less than a second. She moved the phone farther from the edge of the table. Went to the sink, turned on the water. It ran too cold, then warmed fast. She held her hands under it without doing anything, just feeling it move. A car passed outside. Somewhere, a door shut. Karen turned off the tap, dried her hands, opened the cabinet under the sink again. The bag was where she left it. She took it out, set it on the table, looked at it without opening. "It's not mine," she said. That was true. "But it's here," she added. That was true too. She picked up the bag and pushed it deeper, behind the cleaning supplies, so it wouldn't be seen right away. Closed the cabinet, sat down. The ketchup jar was still on the table, almost new, lid catching the light. Karen looked at it, then at the empty plate. "Well," she said. It sounded like something had already been decided. The phone vibrated again. Short this time, then silence. Karen didn't look at it. She sat still, listening as the fridge began to hum a little louder again. Somewhere in that sound was the sense that something had already been recorded, logged like a line on a receipt you can't remove, only read again. On the phone screen, another missed call and a small voicemail notification she chose, for now, not to open. Rita Hoyt had worked at Walgreens for 11 years, and in that time she developed a habit of writing everything down. Not because anyone asked her to. People forget. Paper doesn't. She kept a blue notebook for non-standard situations, her term for anything that didn't follow procedure. The notebook was almost full. That meant either the world had too many non-standard situations, or Rita Hoyt defined non-standard, a little wider than most. On Saturday mornings, she sat behind the counter doing inventory. Familiar work. Close to meditative. Take a box, check the system, mark it off, take the next. Rita moved steady and methodical pen in her right hand, a cup of coffee in her left, though the coffee had gone cold. She didn't like interruptions. So when the phone rang for the third time that morning, she picked it up like it was just the next item on the list. Walgreens, Rita Hoyt speaking. Pause. "Hello," a woman said. "I probably should have called earlier." "That's all right," Rita said, setting the pen down. "Your name?" "Karen? Karen Morris. You called me yesterday." "Yes," said Rita. "I remember. Neutral. Precise. I wanted to clarify," Karen said, "about the medication." "All right. I said I didn't take any." Yes, you did. Pause. That was true, Karen said. Another pause. Slightly longer. All right, said Rita. Then let's sort it out. You had a chance to look at your receipt? Yes. And there's a prescription number listed? Yes. Good. That means the medication was processed with your order in the system. That can happen when carts get mixed up in pickup. Exactly, Karen said, a little quicker. I think our carts got swapped. That's possible, Rita said, because my list was completely different. I understand. And the total? It's 312. Mine's usually, well, a lot less. Said Rita. She looked at the screen. The prescription line was open. Name, number, date. Karen, Rita said, our system shows the medication as dispensed. That means it was physically handed off with someone's order, but not mine. No, yours, technically. Pause. You see, Rita said, cart confusion is a store issue, but the prescription is attached to this order, and the order is tied to your card, so I have to clarify. Well, then it's just a system error, Karen said. She said it calmly, like someone who'd found an explanation and had started to settle into it. Possibly, Rita said, though our system doesn't usually make mistakes. Not in that sense. She didn't add anything. Let it sit. Is there something I should do? Karen asked. In principle, the simplest option is for you to come in with a receipt and we verify everything. Come in? Yes. Takes about 15 minutes. I document it, log the error, and the issue is closed. A long pause. Well, Karen said, I'm a bit busy right now. Of course, Rita said. Anytime that works for you. Maybe next week. All right, though I should mention I need to file a report on unconfirmed prescriptions by Monday, standard procedure. Said Karen. If the medication isn't located by then, I'm required to record it as an unauthorized removal. She said it flat, like a weather update. What does unauthorized mean? Karen asked. It's the standard term for cases where a prescription is released but not confirmed by the recipient. But I didn't receive it. I understand that's what you're saying. Pause. So you don't believe me? I record facts, Rita said. That's a little different. Karen went quiet for a second, then, all right, I'll call you back. All right, said Rita. I'll be here. The line clicked off. Rita opened the blue notebook, wrote the date, the time, the name, then Denise will call back, added a small question mark. She picked up the coffee, cold, took a sip anyway. Karen set the phone down and looked at it like it had behaved incorrectly. Unauthorized removal. The word sat heavy, official like a stamp. Rita had said it so calmly, like it happened every day. Karen stood, went to the kitchen, poured herself water, drank it, poured another, then opened the cabinet under the sink. The bag was still there, quiet, exactly where it had been. She took it out, set it on the table, looked at it. I just need to return it, she said. That made sense. It was sense. She picked up the bag, then set it back down, because if she returned it, she'd have to explain where it came from. And explaining meant admitting she had it, and if she had it, why hadn't she said so? Right away. Not yesterday, not just now. It was a small chain of logic, each link just uncomfortable enough that she didn't feel like pulling it through. Well, later then, she said. She put the bag back, closed the cabinet, went back to the table. The phone sat quiet. Karen checked the screen. No new calls. She relaxed a little, then it vibrated again. Unknown number, not the same one, different. She picked up automatically. Hello? Good afternoon. May I speak with Karen Morris? A man's voice, slow, no hurry. Yes, Karen said. My name is Barry Close, detective with Omaha PD. I'm calling regarding a request from Walgreens. Karen felt the cold again in her stomach. Not sharp, just colder. Yes, she said. We received a routine inquiry about a prescription. Nothing serious. I just need to clarify a couple of things. When would you be available to talk? Well, Karen said, today's not very convenient. Of course, said Close. I could stop by. Won't take more than 10 minutes. Stop by? Yes, I'm in your area anyway. Pause. All right, Karen said. The word came out on its own. Not the right one. Still there it was. Great, said Close. Half an hour work for you? Yes, Karen said. Thank you. She tapped end, looked at the cabinet door, then at the phone, then back at the cabinet. She could call Dan. She almost dialed, then decided she should clean the kitchen first. There were a few crumbs from the toast, and it felt wrong to have someone come over with crumbs on the table. She picked up a cloth. It wasn't the main thing right now, but her hands were already moving, so she let them finish. Barry Close rang the doorbell exactly 28 minutes later, close enough to punctual to feel deliberate. Karen had expected him to be late. In movies, they usually are. She opened the door and noticed the jacket first dark blue, white lettering on the chest, Thunder Lane's Bowling Club. The letters were a little worn, like it was something you wore for warmth, not for show. Under it, a tie, thin stripes, slightly off to the left, a small badge pinned to the lapel. The man himself was medium height, solid, with the face of someone who had stopped being surprised a long time ago. He held a small notebook and looked at Karen with polite, almost clinical interest. "Karen Morris?" he said. "Yes." Very close. He took a business card from his breast pocket and handed it over. "Detective, we spoke on the phone." Karen took the card. Standard, one corner bent. She looked at it like there might be something there besides a name and a number. "Yes," she said. "Come in." "Thank you." He stepped inside and stopped in the entryway, looked around, not fast, not thorough, just enough, like someone used to walking into other people's homes without making a thing of it. Karen closed the door. "Have a seat," she said, gesturing toward the kitchen. "Thanks." He went in, looked around again, let his gaze rest a moment on the table, the ketchup jar, then sat off to the side, not at the head, like a guest who knew better. Karen picked up a dish towel from the counter, not on purpose, just needed something in her hands. "Tea? Coffee?" she asked. "No, thank you." "I won't take long." Pause. "Nice place," he added. "Thank you." She nodded, sat across from him, still holding the towel. Close opened the notebook, uncapped his pen, looked at the page, then at her. "So," he said, "Walgreens submitted a request regarding a prescription listed as dispensed but not confirmed. Standard procedure, nothing serious." Said Karen. "The prescription was issued under the name Shane Maloney. You know him?" "No." "True. Easier than expected." "Okay," he wrote something down. "You were at Hy-Vee Friday evening?" "Yes, around 6, 7, about 6:30. "Good," he wrote again. "At checkout or on your way out? Anything seem unusual?" Karen thought for a second. "No," she said. Close nodded, slow, like the writing mattered more than the answer. "Carts get mixed up sometimes," Karen said. "It's a known issue at Hy-Vee." Said Close. "Happens." He looked at the towel in her hands, then at Karen, then back to the notebook. "And you didn't end up with any extra items? Anything you didn't order?" Pause. The towel tightened slightly. "Maybe an extra sauce," Karen said. "I figured it was some kind of promotion." "Anything else?" "No." He wrote it down, then leaned back. Not relaxed, just adjusting. "Karen," he said, "I'll be straight with you. This is a simple thing. Request, clarification, close the file. Usually takes half an hour." But, he paused. "Sometimes simple things turn out a little more complicated. Not because of you, just because things connect in ways they don't show at first." Karen watched him. "You follow? More or less?" she said. "Good." He slipped the pen into his pocket. "If you remember anything at all that feels relevant, any item that might have ended up with you by mistake, give me a call. Number's on the card." He nodded toward the business card still in her hand. "Okay," said Karen. Close shut the notebook. "This isn't really my business," he said, "but your husband called the station this morning." Something shifted in her chest. Not pain, just movement. "What?" she said. "Dan Morris, right? Attorney?" Close glanced at the notebook, though he wasn't reading. He called, asked about procedure, about the request. "Aye." Karen stopped. "He called himself?" "Around 10, said Close. "Probably just wanted to understand how it works." He said it like a neutral fact, no weight on it, no sympathy either. "I see," said Karen. "Perfectly normal," Close added. "Lawyer's call? Procedural?" "Yes," said Karen. "That's him." She wasn't sure what she meant. Close stood, straightened the Thunder Lane's jacket. "Well, I won't take more of your time," he said. "Appreciate it." "Of course," said Karen. She stood too. They walked to the door. Karen opened it outside. Gray, cold, a thin layer of snow on the steps. Almost not there. Close pulled on his gloves. Slow, each finger in turn. "Have a good weekend," he said. "You too," said Karen. He nodded and walked down the path to his car. Karen watched him go. At that moment, the neighbor's gate with grocery bags, just back from the store by the look of it. She glanced at the detective, then at Karen. "Hi, Karen," she said. "Hi, Linda. Cold today." A little Linda looked after Close. "Company?" "Not really. Work-related," Karen said. "Oh," said Linda, in a tone that meant she didn't understand but wouldn't ask. "Not yet." She gathered her bags and went inside. Karen closed the door, leaned back against it, stood there. Her phone was quiet. 3 missed calls from Dan. She noticed them only now, all from the morning before close. Karen stared at the screen. Dan had known since morning. She didn't know how much he knew, but he knew that part was clear. He'd called the station, asked about procedure. Dan never asked just to ask. He asked when he already knew the answer and wanted to see if it matched what others would say. Professional habit. Karen slipped the phone back into her pocket, went to the kitchen, opened the cabinet under the sink. The bag was there, calm as ever. She looked at it for a second, then closed the cabinet, a little more carefully than usual, like a sharp sound might change something. Close's business card lay on the table. She picked it up, turned it over, blank on the back. Just white. She put the card in the drawer next to the receipt. They lay side by side, one official, one retail. Equally inconvenient. Karen closed the drawer, picked up the phone, looked at Dan in the missed calls, then dialed. One long ring. Second, yeah, said Dan. He picked up fast. Too fast for someone busy. Hi, said Karen. Hi, pause. You called? She said, yeah, said Dan. You home? Yes. Good. Pause, I'll be there soon. He didn't ask if everything was okay. He already knew it wasn't. Dan arrived faster than usual. Karen heard the car pull up almost right after he said soon. For him, that usually meant 40 minutes. Today, 12. She stood in the kitchen without doing anything specific. The table was already clean. No crumbs. The mug washed. The sink empty. She tried wiping the surface again, but the cloth left damp streaks worse than before. She put it away. The key turned in the lock. I'm home, Dan said. Yeah, Karen answered. He walked into the kitchen without taking off his coat. That was the first thing she noticed. He always took it off right away. In the hallway, hung it up straight. Now he just came in, stopped by the table, set his keys next to the ketchup. The ketchup hadn't moved since morning. Lid closed, label facing forward. Dan looked at the jar, then at Karen. Got a lot, he said. Sale, Karen said. It came out almost the same as yesterday. She heard it herself and flinched. Just a little. Dan nodded. Slow. He took off the coat and draped it over the back of a chair. Not the hook. That was the second thing. He poured himself water. Same glass as always, clear, thin crack near the base. Took a sip. Set it down. You had a visitor, he said. Not a question. Yes, Karen said. A detective. Close. Very close, Dan said. He said the name like he'd already used it before. You know him? Karen asked. I know his name, Dan said. I called this morning, pause. He mentioned that, Karen said. They stood facing each other. Between them, the table, the ketchup, the glass of water, and a little more distance than usual. You didn't want to tell me something? Dan asked. Even tone. Standard question. Karen felt something inside tighten. Not faster, not louder, just denser. About what, she said? The cart? Dan said. No change in his voice. That was the part that didn't sit right. Oh, Karen said. That there was a mix-up? Said Dan. He took another sip. I always tell you everything. Karen said it came out before she could check it. Dan looked at her. He didn't answer right away. The pause ran longer than normal. Not long enough to call silence. Sure, he said. He set the glass down, a little too precisely, like he was aligning it with the edge. I saw the receipt, he said. Karen blinked. When? She asked. Last night, Dan said. It was here. He nodded toward the drawer. I figured you'd tell me. Pause. I wanted to understand it first, Karen said. True. In a way. Understand what, exactly? Dan asked. Well, she hesitated. What happened? They mixed up the carts. Dan said, a small nod, like he was recording the phrasing. And what did you find out? He asked. Nothing yet, Karen said. I called the pharmacy. Rita Hoyt, Dan said. Karen looked at him. How do you know? She logged it, Dan said. I asked. No pause, just a sequence. You called the pharmacy? Karen asked. No, Dan said. The station. They already had the request. Pause. I see, Karen said. There wasn't much else to say. Dan glanced at the cabinet under the sink. Where's the medication, he asked. Karen felt the cold again. In the cabinet, she said. Can I see it? Polite, too polite for a kitchen. Yes, she said. She opened the cabinet. The bag wasn't there. For a second, she thought she was looking in the wrong place. She bent down, moved a bottle of cleaner, looked deeper. Empty? That's strange, she said. What? Dan asked. It was here. It being. The bag paused. Dan crouched beside her, looked inside. There's nothing here, he said. It was here this morning, Karen said. I didn't touch it. It sounded like an excuse. No one had accused her. Dan stood. Oliver home, he asked. Yes, Oliver, Dan called. Even voice, slightly louder than usual. Footsteps upstairs. Then the stairs creaked. Oliver came down, holding his phone. Hoodie, hair uneven like he'd just gotten up, though it was past noon. Yeah, he said. Did you take a bag from under the sink? Dan asked. Oliver looked at both of them. The white one? He said. Yes, Karen said. Yeah, he said. Thought it was my vitamins. Pause. It's not your vitamins, Karen said. Yeah, I figured, Oliver said. Stuff in. There's weird. Where is it? Dan asked. In my room, Oliver said. I just looked. Bring it, please, Dan said. Okay. He turned and went back upstairs. The steps creaked louder this time. Karen stood looking at the cabinet. I didn't know he took it, she said. Said Dan. He stood beside her, not looking at her, looking at the table. Did you open it? He asked. Yes, Karen said. And medication? That all? Pause. Yes, Karen said. Not exactly true. Close enough to pass, Oliver came back. The bag in his hands, no longer folded neat, slightly crumpled, open at the top. Here, he said, setting it on the table. Dan took it, looked inside, pulled out one box, checked the label. Shane Maloney, he read. He said the name like it was part of a file. You don't know him? He asked Karen. No. Dan nodded, put the box back. There was something else, Oliver said. He reached into the bag, pulled out a small envelope. What's this? Karen went still. Give it here, Dan said. Oliver handed it over. Dan opened the envelope, took out a folded sheet, unfolded it, read, pause. What is it? Karen asked. Dan didn't answer right away. A phone number, he said, and a note. What note? He looked at her. Call before Sunday. Otherwise, Todd comes by himself. The kitchen got quieter. Even the fridge seemed to stop for a second. That's probably a mistake, Oliver said. Like not for us, no one answered. Dan folded the note back into the envelope. Set it on the table next to the bag. He said. It sounded like a period at the end of a sentence that wasn't finished. Karen looked at the envelope. It still looked like a mistake, only now it was a bigger one. Oliver didn't look guilty. He looked interested. That was the first thing Karen noticed when he sat back down and pulled the bag closer. He didn't lean away from it like it was Chishoe. He leaned in like it was something you could take apart and understand. I didn't take anything, he said, before anyone asked. If that's what this is? That's not what this is, Dan said. He stayed on his feet, didn't sit. It made the whole thing uneven, one sitting, one standing. But he didn't seem to notice. Oliver nodded, like that clarified things. I just checked what was inside, he said. It was all packed neat, thought it was supplements. It's not supplements, Karen said. I figured, Oliver said. Names are weird. He picked up a box, turned it in his hands. This one, for example, he said, looks like something for the nervous system. Put it back, Karen said. Yeah, he put it back. Not right away. First, he aligned it with the edge of the bag. Like the order mattered, Dan picked up the envelope. You open this? He asked. Yeah, Oliver said. It was inside. Thought it was instructions. And you read it? Yeah, pause. You tell anyone? Dan asked. No, Oliver said. Who would I tell? He meant it. There wasn't an obvious person in his world for that kind of thing. Dan nodded. Good. He unfolded the note again. Read it like it might have changed call before Sunday. Otherwise, Todd comes by himself, he said, flat, like reading a line from a report. Karen sat there looking at the envelope. It's not for us, she said. For who? Dan asked. For him, she said. Maloney? Shane Maloney, Dan said. Yes? Then why is it here? He asked. Pause. Simple question. No clean answer. Because they mixed up the carts, Karen said. Dan said. No sarcasm, just logged. And you decided not to return it? He asked. I wanted to understand first, Karen said. He set the note down, next to the bag, next to the ketchup. 3 objects, no reason to belong together. Still, there they were. And how were you planning to understand it? Dan asked. I called the pharmacy, Karen said, and they said it was a mistake. They said it was a mistake, Dan asked. Well, she hesitated. They said it could be. Pause. Oliver watched both of them, quiet, but listening. There was a number 2, he said. We see that? Dan said. No, I mean... Oliver pulled out his phone. I took a picture. Karen turned to him. Sharp. Why? She said. He shrugged. Just in case. Like that explained it. Let me see, Dan said. Oliver handed over the phone. Dan looked. You call it? He asked. No, Oliver said. I'm not an idiot. Pause. Good, Dan said. He gave the phone back. Delete it, Karen said. Why? Oliver asked. Just delete it. Oliver looked at her, then at Dan. Dan nodded. Delete it, he said. Oliver tapped the screen. Paused a second. Deleted, he said. No one checked. The kitchen went quiet, not empty, just full of things nobody said. Karen looked at the bag. We should just return it, she said. It sounded like a decision. Simple, logical, almost obvious. To who? Dan asked. The pharmacy. And what do you tell them? That it got mixed up? And yesterday, what did you tell them? Pause. That, I didn't take it, Karen said. A small nod. Another point marked. So now, you go in and say you did take it? Well, she hesitated. I'll say I found it. Where? At home. And yesterday it wasn't there? Pause. The words started slipping. Not gone, just out of order. Like she knew what she meant but couldn't line it up clean. I didn't notice it, she said. Dan said, no smile. Still something in it sounded like a conclusion. Oliver picked up the glass, took a sip. What if it's not just medication, he said. They both looked at him. What do you mean, Karen asked. Well, Oliver said there's a note, a number, some guy named Todd, he shrugged. Doesn't feel like a normal pharmacy thing? It isn't, Dan said. It's a setup. He said it like a term. What kind of setup? Karen asked. Resale of prescription meds, Dan said. Dummy orders, pickup swap. He looked at the bag, nothing complicated. And this is, Karen hesitated. Serious, it's illegal, Dan said. Usually pause, but we didn't, she started. We're in it now, Dan said. No raised voice, just a fact. Karen looked at the envelope. We should return it, she said again, less certain this time. We should think, Dan said. He picked up the note again, looked at the number. It's Saturday, he said. The note says before Sunday. So, Karen asked. So someone's waiting for a call. Pause. And if we don't call, she asked. Then Todd comes by himself, Oliver said. He sounded almost curious. No one laughed. Dan put the note down. Question is, he said, who shows up and where? Karen felt the cold again. She looked at the door like checking if it was still closed. It was. It's just words, she said. Dan said. He checked the time. We've got until tomorrow. For what? Karen asked. To avoid doing anything unnecessary, he said. It sounded like advice or a warning. Oliver looked at the bag again. I can look up the meds, he said, just to see what they are. No, Karen said too quickly. Oliver raised his eyebrows. Okay, he said. He stood. I'll be upstairs. Dan said. Oliver went up. The stairs creaked again. Karen stayed in the kitchen with Dan, the bag, the note, the ketchup. You could have told me, Dan said. Quiet. No accusation. Worse that way. Karen looked at the table. I was going to, she said. True. Dan said. Pause. He picked up the bag, folded it neater than before. Doesn't matter when you were going to, he said. He set it a little farther from the edge. What matters is what happens next. Karen nodded. She wasn't sure she understood what came next, but it felt like it wasn't just up to her anymore. Sunday, 9:02. The doorbell rang like someone had pressed it carefully, with respect for other people's mornings. Not sharp, not insistent. Once, enough to be heard, not enough to feel pushy. Karen stood at the stove, pancakes browning unevenly, one edge darker, the other still pale. She held a spatula, watched bubbles in the batter pop with a soft sound. The smell was warm, homey, had nothing to do with what she felt in her chest when the bell rang. I'll get it, she said, automatic. Like come in or thanks. Dan sat at the table with a cup of coffee, didn't look up. He said. Same as yesterday, neutral, almost polite. Karen set the spatula on the pan edge, wiped her hands on the towel, walked to the entryway, checked the clock on the way, 9:03. She opened the door. The man stood on the porch, stepped back slightly, like he'd already left room so he wouldn't look like someone trying to come in uninvited. Dark coat, neat, no extra folds. Short hair trimmed clean, face calm, no expression you could name right away. Good morning, he said, voice quiet. Even not cold, just without extra tone. Good morning, Karen said. I'm here about a supermarket mix-up, he said. He said it like it was a swapped receipt or an extra loaf of bread. Pause. Karen held the door open. She started. Who are you? Todd, he said. Todd Vaughn? He didn't offer a hand, just gave the name. Karen felt the words from the note slide into place. Oh, she said, that was all she could manage. We seem to be looking for the same thing, Todd said. He nodded slightly, like he was confirming the phrasing worked. Karen looked past him. A car idled on the street, dark, exhaust puffing light vapor. Iowa plates. You? She stopped again. It's a mistake. Yes, Todd said. That's exactly why I'm here. He said it with a small politeness that almost sounded like agreement. Pause. Karen stood at the door, cold coming in. Maybe you should come in, she said. She knew it was wrong the instant she said it. Todd looked at her a second longer than normal. No thanks, he said. Won't take long. Soft, almost caring. Karen nodded. Okay, pause. Seems like you ended up with a bag you shouldn't have, Todd said. He didn't specify which one. Didn't need to. Yes, Karen said. Words came easier than yesterday. Great, Todd said. Then, if you don't mind, I'd like to take it, he asked, like he was asking for a borrowed umbrella back. Karen glanced at the kitchen. Dan sat in the same spot, looking into his cup. Wait, she said. Of course, Todd said. He stayed on the porch, hands in pockets. Shoulders relaxed, looked like someone with nowhere to rush. Karen went into the kitchen. She said quietly. It's him. Dan looked up. Who? Todd paused. Dan set the cup down. He said. He stood. Where's the bag here? Karen pointed at the table. The bag lay where they'd left it, next to the envelope. Dan picked it up, looked at the envelope. The envelope stays, he said. Why? Karen asked. Because it's ours, Dan said, calm, like a decision already made. He might ask, Karen said. Let him, Dan said. Pause. Okay, Karen said, again automatic. They walked to the door. Todd stood in the same place. Didn't shift. Just turned his head slightly as they came out. Thanks for waiting, he said. Of course, Dan said. He stepped forward holding the bag. You're Todd Vaughn? He asked. Yes, Dan Morris. No, Karen's husband. Unnecessary. Nice to meet you, Todd said. Sounded like he meant it. Dan nodded. Here's your bag, he said. He handed it over. Todd took it. Careful. Check the weight like it was a normal purchase. Appreciate it, he said. Pause. Everything still in there? He asked. Polite, but the question was exact. Dan looked at him. Everything we found, he said. Todd nodded. Understood. He didn't look inside, just held it. What about the envelope, he asked. Same calm tone as before. Karen felt something tighten. Dan didn't look at her. We're keeping the envelope, he said. Pause. Todd nodded. Okay, he said. Then maybe we should discuss that separately. Sounded like he was suggesting coffee. Maybe, Dan said. Today? Todd asked. Today's not convenient, Dan said. Understood, Todd said. Then tomorrow. Not a question, a proposal. Pause. Where, Dan asked. There's a place, Todd said. Dairy Queen on Maple, a small smile, short, almost formal. 12, yeah? Dan said same yeah as at home, but it sounded different now. Great, Todd said. He stepped back. See you tomorrow. See you, Dan said. Karen stood beside him, didn't say anything. Todd turned and walked to the car. Engine still running, opened the door, got in, closed it. The car pulled away almost immediately, no pause. Karen watched it go until it disappeared around the corner. Then she closed the door, turned to Dan. She didn't finish. Dan said he went into the kitchen, sat back down, picked up the cup. Coffee was cold. He took a sip anyway. He knew about Oliver, Karen said. Dan looked at her. What? He said. She tried to remember. He said, you seem to have ended up with a bag. Not you. You, like he knew who you was. Pause. Dan set the cup down. That doesn't mean he knows, he said. It means he's guessing. Isn't that the same? Karen asked. Dan didn't answer right away. Almost, he said. Pause. Karen looked at the table. The envelope lay there. Small. Neat. You sure we should have kept it? She asked. Yes, Dan said. Why? Because it's the only thing we've got, he said. Calm, like a fact. Against him? Karen asked. In the situation, Dan said. Pause. Karen nodded. She wasn't sure she understood the difference. The pan sizzled, a pancake burning on one edge. Karen turned to the stove, picked up the spatula, flipped it. Too late. Well, she said, same as yesterday, but now it meant something else. Dan called from his work phone. Not because it was necessary, because it looked more right. A work number carried weight. In his experience, formality made people speak more carefully. He sat in his office, door closed, blinds drawn halfway. The envelope lay on the desk. He dialed. Yeah, a voice said. This is Dan Morris. We met this morning. Yeah, I remember. Pause. I wanted to clear up details about the meeting. Dairy Queen, Maple, noon, still stands. Pause. We kept the envelope, Dan said. I know, there's information in it? Yeah, pause. I'd like to understand how you propose to resolve this. Silence. You're a lawyer, Todd said. Yes. Good, that simplifies things. Pause. Then let's skip the formalities. You have something that shouldn't have ended up with you. I have an interest in getting it back. I want clarity, Dan said. Almost the same thing. Pause. What exactly is in the envelope? Dan asked. A number and a reminder. A reminder about what? About how people sometimes forget to do what they're told? Pause. Is that a threat? No, it's a description. Pause. Then see you tomorrow. See you. Dan set the phone down. He opened the envelope, took out the note, looked at the number, put the phone on the desk, sat, didn't move, didn't know what to do next, but didn't want to stand up either. Then he stood, slow, opened the drawer, pulled out a folder, old, worn, marked up, client files, a company with an address on the south side of town. He flipped through, found an entry with a phone number. 3 digits matched. He didn't tell himself it was a coincidence. Didn't tell himself it wasn't, just set the paper next to the note, looked at them. The pause stretched. Then he closed the folder, left it on the desk, didn't put it back. Strange, he never left files out after work, but today he did. He realized he'd forgotten why. He walked to the window, pushed the blinds aside. Cars moved slow outside. Someone stood at the bus stop. Someone else walked by. Everyone looked normal, like there were no schemes operating anywhere near them. He knew that wasn't true. Sometimes he felt like he wasn't participating as a lawyer, but as part of a mechanism he didn't control. He didn't know if he was free himself. New feeling he wasn't used to it. The phone vibrated. Karen? Yeah. You called him? Yeah. Why? To understand what's happening? And me? Pause. Should've, he said. Then why didn't you tell me? I'm telling you now. Pause. You knew before I told you? Yeah. You waited? Yeah. Why? Pause. To see if you'd tell me yourself. Silence. You didn't, he said. Pause. Okay, Karen said. She hung up. Dan looked at the folder, didn't know what to do with it, and for the first time in a long time it wasn't professionally inconvenient, it was personal. Shane Maloney didn't like thinking more than one step ahead, because on the second step Todd usually showed up. He sat in his car, phone in hand, the number half dialed. He stared at it like the digits might rearrange themselves. He didn't call, he knew that if he did, he'd have to explain. Explaining meant admitting he hadn't done what he was supposed to, and that was heavier than just not doing it. He imagined what he'd say to Todd. Look, I thought it didn't matter. I thought I could do it later. And you know what Todd would say? Later doesn't exist. He always said that later doesn't exist. Shane exhaled. His hand shook. He wasn't a coward, just an ordinary person in the wrong place at the wrong time. He knew there were people worse than him, knew there were better ones too. He was just somewhere in between. Now, he said, he'd said it 5 times already, didn't call. Started the car. The plan was simple. Drive there, explain it was a mistake, ask for one more day. Todd sometimes gave one more day at first, then he stopped. Shane knew he wasn't in that part anymore, but the plan stayed. It helped. He drove slow, too slow, cars passed him. The light turned yellow. He pressed the gas. Not because he was in a hurry, but because stopping meant thinking further, and thinking further was worse. He ran it. Red, sirens behind him. Flashing lights. Shane didn't get scared right away. He just felt the plan. The real one fold itself neatly, like paper folded too many times. He didn't run, he thought. He thought about what he could have done differently. Could have called earlier. Could have not taken the envelope. Could have not gotten involved at all. But back then, he'd been someone else. He stopped in front of Walgreens, pause, hands on the wheel. He looked in the glove box, a white envelope. Exactly the same. He opened it, closed it. Fine, he said. The word sounded empty. The officer approached. Good afternoon. Good. You know why I pulled you over? Yeah, license, please. Shane reached for the glove box, opened it. The envelope shifted. The officer looked. What's that? Documents? Pause. Shane found his license, handed it over, hands shaking. Wait here. The officer walked off. Shane stayed, looked at the envelope again. Call before Sunday. Today was Sunday. He realized one simple thing. He was already late. And it wasn't about the police. Pause. He opened the door. Got out. Took a step. Second step. Didn't run. Just walked. Like you could walk out of a situation the same way you walked out of a car. Sir. Voice behind him. He stopped. Closed his eyes. Yeah. Returned to the vehicle. Pause. Shane nodded. Went back, hands on the hood. Cold. That wasn't your best move, the officer said. I know. Pause. Something in the glove box. Yeah. What? A problem, Shane said. Pause. The officer opened the glove box. Took out the envelope. Looked. Pause. You're coming with us. Yeah, Shane said, easier than explaining. 20 minutes later, someone at the station called Barry close. We've got Maloney. Pause. He didn't run, they added. Just stopped knowing what he was doing. Closed his notebook. Understood, he said, and that was almost true. Barry Close came back a second time without the bowling jacket. He wore a neat gray coat and a tie with a sauce stain already on it. Dark, asymmetrical, like he'd tried to wipe it and only spread it. He knocked twice, with the same polite pause between taps, like he was checking whether people inside were occupied. Karen didn't open right away. She stood in the hallway, listening to the second knock catch up to the first, then turned the handle. Good afternoon, Close said. Good, Karen said. He looked at her, then at the door, then slightly to the side, like he was noting where things were placed. Won't take long, he said. May I? Yes, Karen said. She stepped back. He came in, carefully wiped his boots on the mat, though there was barely any snow on them. Still cozy in here, he said. Thanks, Karen said. They went to the kitchen. Everything was in its place. Even the ketchup stood exactly where it had been yesterday. It looked like time wasn't moving here, just folding neatly into layers. Close sat on the same chair as last time. Not accidental. People usually sit where they've sat before. Karen stayed standing. You going to stand, he asked. Yeah, she said. Good, Close said. He opened the notebook. Same one, blue cover worn at the edges. The situation changed a bit, he said, like he was talking about a bus schedule. In what way? Karen asked. We have Shane Maloney now, Close said. Pause. He's? Karen hesitated. The one? Yes, Close said. The one. He looked into the notebook. Got pulled over this morning? Traffic violation. Nothing special? But he acted. Close paused, searching for the word. Not entirely rational. In what way? Tried to leave, Close said, on foot. In the parking lot? Oh, Karen said, sounded like she understood. She didn't. He had documents in the car, Close continued, related to prescription meds. He looked at her, including that same prescription number. Pause. Karen felt her hands go cold, and she asked, now, it's not just a clarification. Close said, it's a case. Calm, almost soft. A case? Karen repeated, yes. He closed the notebook, set the pen on top. In situations like this, we usually ask people to come in and give a statement. Voluntarily. Voluntarily means I can refuse? Karen asked. Close nodded, theoretically, pause. But I wouldn't recommend it. He added, same tone as everything else, worse than if he'd raised his voice. Karen nodded. Okay, pause. When? She asked. Today or tomorrow, Close said. Sooner, simpler. He looked at her. You had contact with this Todd, right? Karen froze for a second. Yes, she said. He came by? Close asked. Yes. Got the bag back? Yes. What's left? Close asked. Pause. Karen looked at the table. The envelope, she said. Close said. He didn't write it down, just nodded. May I see it? He asked. Polite. Almost like a request. Karen walked to the table, picked up the envelope, held it a second, then handed it over. Close took it, opened it carefully, pulled out the note, read it, pause, call before Sunday. Otherwise, Todd comes by himself, he said. He read it out loud like he was logging it. He came, Karen said. Yes, Close said. I understand. He folded the note back in. This is useful, he said. In what way? Karen asked. Procedurally, Close said. He set the envelope on the table. You see, he continued, we've got several lines now. The pharmacy, Maloney, now you. And also, he paused. Other people? Who else? Karen asked. Close looked at her. Not really my business, he said. But better you don't try to figure everything out on your own right now. Pause. Why? She asked. Because people sometimes make unnecessary moves, Close said. And unnecessary moves complicate the work. Whose work? Karen asked. Close smiled slightly, not happy. Everyone's, he said. Pause. Footsteps outside. Then a familiar voice. Karen. Linda Cho walked by with a dog. The dog pulled on the leash, sniffing the snow. Karen turned automatically. Hi, Linda, she said. Oh, you've got company again, Linda said, stopping at the gate. She looked at Close. Good afternoon, he said. Good, Linda said. Everything okay? That question people ask when they can already see it isn't, yeah, everything's fine, Karen said. Oh, well, good, Linda said. I just, if anything. She nodded like she was offering help without specifying what for. Thanks, Karen said. Linda kept walking. The dog pulled her forward. The door closed. Kitchen quiet again. Neighbors always notice everything, Close said. Karen said. Useful, he added, said like he was talking about the weather. Pause. You need to come to the station, he said, with the envelope, and tell us everything the way it happened. Everything, Karen asked. Everything you consider important, Close said, sounded like choice. Wasn't. Pause. Karen nodded. Okay, great, Close said. He stood, adjusted his tie. The sauce stain moved slightly. One more thing, he said. Yes, if anyone contacts you, Todd, or anyone else, better let us know. Okay, it'll simplify things, Close said like simplification was guaranteed. Pause. Do you understand what's happening? Karen asked. Quiet question. Close looked at her. Yes, he said. Pause. I don't, she said. Close nodded. That's normal, he said. People usually don't understand until it's too late. No cruelty, just an observation. Pause. He picked up the notebook. Then see you at the station, he said. See you, Karen said. He left. Closed the door behind him. Karen stayed standing in the kitchen. The envelope lay on the table. She walked over, picked it up, held it in her hands, then put it back, sat down. The phone lay nearby. She looked at it, then dialed. Not Dan, the pharmacy. Walgreens, Rita said. It's Karen Morris, Karen said. Pause. I'm ready to come in, she said. She didn't add and tell everything, but that part was already clear. At night, the kitchen looked different. Same objects, table, chair, sink, fridge, but everything seemed shifted slightly, like someone had moved them a few centimeters and left without saying anything. The light above the sink was too white, making shadows sharper than during the day. Karen sat at the table holding the receipt. She'd pulled it from the drawer earlier that evening after calling Walgreens and had folded and unfolded it several times since. The paper was softer at the creases, the corners slightly rounded. The total was the same, the name, same. She ran her finger over the pharmacy line. Then again, like that might erase something. The envelope lay on the table. Next to it, the phone, screen dark. The house was quiet. Dan was sleeping or lying with his eyes closed. Not the same thing, but it didn't matter now. Oliver was asleep too. In his room, something clicked quietly now and then. Maybe the computer hadn't shut off. Karen glanced at the clock. 2:17. Well, she said, sounded almost like the other times. But this wasn't about pancakes, not about ketchup. She stood, went to the sink, poured water, drank, cold, almost tasteless. She looked at her reflection in the dark window. A little blurry face looked calm. Strange, you always tell everything, she said to the reflection. It didn't answer. She went back to the table, sat, opened the envelope, took out the note. Call before Sunday, otherwise Todd comes by himself. He already came. She flipped the paper over, blank, then picked up the phone, opened missed calls. Todd's number was there, the one Oliver had photographed. She hadn't deleted it, didn't check if he had. She tapped the number, finger hovered over the call button. Pause. No, she said. She put the phone down. First decision she'd made without hesitation, not to call. She put the note back in the envelope, closed it, then picked up the receipt, looked at it again. It's just a mistake, she said. Words came quiet, almost tired. She knew it wasn't true. That's why they were still here. Karen stood, opened the cabinet, took out the trash can, held the receipt over the edge, paused, then lowered her hand. Not now, she said. She folded the receipt, put it back on the table. Next to the envelope, sat. The clock ticked 2:31. At some point, she stopped looking at it, just sat, stared at the table. Thought about how many times she'd said later. Later, I'll figure it out. Later, I'll tell. Later, I'll fix it. Later, everything will be fine. She tried to remember the last time later actually fixed anything. Couldn't by morning the light changed, not brighter, just less cold. Karen stood, turned on the kettle, water roared. She got out her mug, the usual one, scooped coffee, not tea, pause. She stood holding the table edge, watching the water boil. Phone lay nearby. She picked it up, dialed, Walgreens. Rita said, same voice, even. It's Karen Morris, she said. Yeah, Karen, Rita said. I was waiting. Pause. I'm coming in, Karen said today. Good, Rita said. I'll be here until 6. I'll be there earlier. Great, pause. Bring the receipt, Rita added, and everything you have. Yes, Karen said. She didn't ask why. It was clear. See you then, Rita said. See you. Karen set the phone down. The kettle clicked off. She poured water into the mug, waited a second before taking a sip. Coffee was too hot. She set the mug down, then picked up the envelope and the receipt, folded them together, stood. The hallway door opened. Dan stood in the doorway. Same shirt as yesterday, looked like he hadn't slept. You didn't sleep? He said. No. Karen said, pause. I'm going to Walgreens, she said. Dan said. Didn't ask why. I'm taking everything, she added. She held up the envelope and receipt. Dan looked at them. Good, he said, pause. You're going to the meeting? She asked. Yes, Dan said. Dairy Queen? Yes, pause. This won't change, Karen said. Didn't realize right away what she meant. Dan looked at her. What exactly, he asked. What came before this, she said. It wasn't about the cart. Pause. He nodded. I know, he said. Calm. Karen felt something inside lighten. Not better, just lighter. I'll tell everything, she said. Dan said. He walked to the table, picked up the mug, took a sip. Hot, he said. Yes, Karen said, pause. You always tell everything, he said. No tone. Karen looked at him. Yes, she said. Sounded different this time. He nodded, set the mug down. Then tell me, he said. Pause. Karen nodded. Didn't start right away. First she got her coat, then her bag. Put the envelope and receipt inside, checked again. That they were there, zipped it shut. Important to close it. I'll be back, she said. Dan said. She walked to the door, stopped, turned. I didn't notice right away, she said. Friday, pause. I know, Dan said, but then I did. She said, and I didn't say, pause. Yeah, he said. Simple. Karen nodded, opened the door, cold came in. She stepped outdoor, closed softly behind her, left on the kitchen, the table, the mug, and the spot where the envelope had been, and for the first time there was no later left. At Walgreens, folder number 44712 sat on the middle shelf, between two others with similar numbers. Rita Hoyt wrote the date in the upper right corner and drew a line under the last entry. The line was straight. She opened the folder, flipped through the pages. Well, she said, not to anyone, just noting it. Rita closed the folder, aligned it with the shelf edge, stepped back. Straight, she said. 12 more just like it sat nearby. She walked along the shelf, ran her finger along the spines. Not vanity, just simple. She knew if everything was straight, everything would be clear, but she wasn't sure it was clear. The station was bright and dry. Barry Close sat at his desk without a tie. On the desk, a suspension order. He'd read it 3 times. He said. In the office across the hall, someone laughed. Barry closed the folder, set it aside, picked up the business card, turned it over, blank on the back. He ran his finger over the empty side. This isn't really my business, he said. No one answered. Shane Maloney sat in the courtroom, staring at his hands. His lawyer was saying something. The judge spoke calmly. You understand what you're charged with? Yes. Do you plead guilty? Pause. Yes. He looked away. Dan sat straight. 3 weeks later, Dan came into the office, opened the drawer, pulled out the folder, set it on the desk, looked at the number in the document, compared it to the note. 3 digits matched. No more. He told himself it was a coincidence, then stopped. He didn't know who that client was. Knew it was a small logistics company, knew the address was on the south side, knew the company shut down quietly. No announcement. He didn't file a report. Not because he was afraid, because he wasn't sure he knew enough. New feeling. He wasn't used to uncertainty. He closed the folder, put it in the far drawer, didn't throw it away, knew he'd come back. He did. The Dairy Queen ran like always. Dan arrived at noon, sat by the window, water on the table. Todd showed up at 12:05. Sorry, doesn't matter. Pause. You have the envelope? Yes. And you want this documented? Yes. Pause. Todd finished his water, set the glass exactly in the center of the coaster. You know what always surprises me, he said. Dan looked at him. People think if they act through the right channels, they're on the right side. Not the same thing. Pause. I know, Dan said. Todd looked closer. Yeah, he said. Looks like you know. A man with a badge walked up. Mr. Vaughn. Todd nodded. Seems like the conversation's getting postponed. Looks like it, Dan said. Todd stood. Then you understand this isn't the end. For you. No. For us. Enough. Pause. Good luck with the paperwork. He left. Dan stayed, looked at the empty chair. Didn't know what he felt, didn't know if he'd won, didn't know if he'd lost, didn't know if there was winning. He left the water, stood left. Karen told everything. Rita wrote it down. Thanks for the precision, she said. Karen nodded. It was heavier than being accused. At home, the drawer felt lighter, but the mark remained rectangular. She ran her finger over it. Sometimes Oliver got quieter. They really do mix up the carts, he asked. Yes. Linda said. Heard you had something going on? Supermarket mix-up. That evening, Dan said. I always tell you everything. Karen looked at him. Yes. Pause. They didn't add anything. At Walgreens, the folder sat on the shelf, straight, like the others. The mark in the drawer didn't disappear. Carts do get mixed up sometimes. It's a known issue.